Okay, welcome back to the Horizon stage. Hopefully you've had a fantastic day. Nod your heads if you had a fantastic day. I've noticed today no one likes putting their hands up, so I'm going for the nod ahead approach. So lots of you nodded, which is really good. This is our final session of the day. This is Tech for People, Future of Work with AI. So the questions to ponder before the panel come on. Should AI be a colleague or just a tool? As AI becomes a growing presence in our workplaces, the questions are louder than ever. What should be automated and what must stay human? How do we build trust in systems that are often invisible? Or who is accountable when things go wrong? The panel will discuss all of that and more now. So please welcome to the stage your chair, Gina, Neff, and the panel. Diolch yn fawr iawn.
We come to understand that we are the last panel of the day and the panel that stands between you and the pub or the drinks. This very serious networking that we will be doing together. I'm Gina Neff, and I am professor of responsible AI, and I help to run something called Responsible AI UK. And we are in for a treat because on this panel, we're going to talk about what it takes to get AI to work for people. We have an extraordinary panel. I'm going to bring them in one at a time to really help us think through both the opportunities and some of the challenges that we have to think about and start to address to ensure that AI powers benefits for all of us. I'm really excited to be doing this here at Wales Tech Week, where we have also just announced the Welsh government's AI Strategic Council, and we have 3 of those members here on this panel. So you're in for a treat for thinking about also how Wales can be a test bed of sorts for ensuring that we get responsible AI that works for companies. How do we make sure we get this right? So first, I'm going to bring in Walter. Walter, you've advised companies, you've advised governments, and you're really starting to see some big trends across some of those conversations. Bring us into how you're seeing and thinking about this. Maybe we can bring this mic over for Walter.
Thank you. Thank you so much, everyone. Really glad to be here with some of my esteemed colleagues. So as far as the conversations around artificial intelligence and the future of work, it's probably in nearly a decade of working in the field. It's the #1 question that I've been receiving throughout from people in government, people in corporates, even some friends back home. Now, the first thing to say is that any conversation around artificial intelligence and jobs is really pretty much as old as time. So there was, the first time I started looking into that, I found an article from the New York Times called "The Threat of the Machine Age" that was written in 1932. And since then, we can really find almost like a trail of different pieces of writing, of analysis, where all of the most important experts at that particular time were kind of warning about the inevitable changes that technologies and particularly artificial intelligence would bring. 1964, the Lyndon Johnson administration received a memo called the Triple Revolution Report, in which, again, the smartest minds in America were warning about XYZ happening. I think 2015, the Oxford Martin School published a piece that forecasted that 40% of all jobs would be gone by the year 2040. And then since then, there's been another study by OpenAI that said all white-collar jobs are going to be impacted. Then there's been another one a few months ago that said entry-level jobs are going to be impacted. The truth is that the evidence that we have so far, the forecasts that we've produced, have changed quite a bit because of the technologies that developed on the back of that. But if there are a few patterns that we can maybe trace back across these decades and years, is #1, the fact that overall technologies seem to have created more jobs than they actually took away. Think of the 1940s. I think only 60% of the jobs that we have today didn't exist back then. So think of search engine optimization specialists. We didn't really have that back then. In the same way that we have much less people who now are experts on horses and bayonets, right? So that's one pattern. The other pattern is then the critical importance of human intelligence. and keeping human intelligence essentially in the loop. That some people call it the human touch. Some other people give it out of different names, but essentially through all kinds of industries that we've seen historically, whenever there is a human being involved in whatever industry it is, be it Italian leather shoes, I'm Italian so I can help, be it any other kinds of handcrafted goods, be it either in software, keeping a human at the center of this transformation is truly the one thing that keeps quality and prices up and allows us to produce services that are excellent. So this is just like a very broad overview. I look forward to going deeper into the conversation and yeah, thank you very much.
We're going to turn next to Chris. This is my cue to Walter to pass the mic to Chris. I have a method here. We're going to turn to Chris. Chris Butt is the the founder of DeepLearn. And at DeepLearn, you're really developing these AI tools that help people understand their potential and grow their potential. What are some of those key values that you're seeing in terms of getting AI to work for people, particularly in their jobs?
Thank you, everyone. Great pleasure to be here. I think this is where the rubber meets the road, so to speak, because I think, as Walter said, we, for a long time, have not put human beings at the very center of these transformations. In the 1970s, we're in Wales, obviously now. We went through a sort of industrial change. We're going through another major change. And I think companies have been slow, governments have been slow on the whole to recognize that people are really what it's all about, and that we have to put them first, second, and third. Technology is an enabler, it's a tool. But I think we have been slow on the whole, Gina, at recognizing that if we don't put human beings at the very center of any transition, and we are going through a very aggressive one at the moment, lots of jobs are being lost, lots of changes are occurring. If we don't find the essence of what it is to be human, and start to understand what that looks like in 5, 10, 15, 20 years' time. The problems that Wales faced in the 1970s, 80s, and we still see it in the valleys now, will come back to haunt us. So, I think there's hope, and I think there is a recognition finally that, technology should be an enabler of human beings, not really something that blocks what it is to be a human and what it is to be in work, frankly. That is changing. We're moving from a sort of task-based society where education has for a long time told us what to learn, how to learn it, and we need to adapt our human skills really to face the challenges over the next 10 or 15 years. So how do human beings become much more adaptable? How do we cognize? How do we think about thinking? How do we problem solve? How do we relate emotionally and socially? I think these are the critical human factors that companies, governments, third sector, private, public, all of us need to get together and really start to shape a future where AI doesn't become an impediment. It's actually a liberator of infinite potential. We all have wonderful potential as human beings. When we're born, we mustn't shut that down. And I hope that AI actually gives us an opportunity to look at this from another lens, look at it very much from a conscious human lens, and we free people to do the things that they really ought to be doing. So that's my short take on it. Just in terms of the question, Gina, in terms of some of the companies, companies on the whole have been thinking about these issues for a long time. They're slow to move. I think you see at the enterprise level some companies moving more quickly. When you get down to SME, large-scale companies, they're playing catch-up in a lot of these human skills areas. And I think it's sort of incumbent on government and policymakers to really start to encourage SMEs, small businesses, to take up the cudgel, put people first, and get people sort of thinking about the future in a different way.
That's great. And now watch my cueing that the mic magically goes to Ruth Patterson, who is Managing Director for UK and Ireland at HP. And Ruth, HP is working quite a bit with their customers and clients, small businesses. How are you helping those organizations manage this transition?
Yeah, so from a Hewlett-Packard perspective, our global strategy, and very much then our strategy here for the UK and Ireland, is actually called the future of work, and very much looking at what is needed for people to be successful, whether you're an enterprise organization, whether you're a small business infrastructure, whether you are in the National Health Service, if you're in a government infrastructure, if you're in education. What does the future of work mean to you? And ultimately then how we partner with the IT decision makers within those different infrastructures on what their optimal model is going to be. Because I know from working with subject matter experts in those different areas, what is going to work for the NHS and the GP, for example, is going to be very different to a knowledge worker in an engineering organization. And so what we're doing from a Hewlett-Packard perspective is working closely with the different verticals to understand the different use cases and where we can help them be successful with evolving their models. And that goes across hardware, software, and services. And so how we help educate was the key part. We provide training. And ultimately then what are the solutions end to end for the right ecosystem to be successful? Because what's most important is we're delivering the outcome that's needed in the different infrastructures. It's not a product we're selling, it's that total solution. So it's actually making the user's life better and it's delivering the outcome more efficiently and effectively as needed. And another component is our focus is exactly as being talked about here on the panel, is what's important for employees. Hewlett-Packard did a study called the Work Relationship Index, and it was identified from a global perspective, only 20% of people had a healthy relationship with work. And actually the UK and Ireland was 15%. So the UK and Ireland was actually lower than global average. And a key part of that, there are a number of different determinants, but one key part was actually people's tools, processes, access to technology, and ultimately how they get taught to use and optimize that technology as well. So we see huge amounts of opportunity to improve that relationship with AI, with technology, to help people be more successful in their daily roles.
That's really great. Thanks. Or actually really terrifying. That in the UK we're below. I hope you're all feeling a little happy with work right now, being able to connect with people sitting here rather than dealing with outdated tools and the things that we have seen cause that. Next, we're bringing on Marloes Pomp. And the question that we have, you advise governments, you advise both the Dutch government and the EU and now the Welsh government as part of this AI, the Strategic AI Council. So it's all well and good to say people should be at the center, but what are some of the challenges you see having worked across advising different governments on their tech transformation journeys?
Well, thank you for the question. And I really enjoy being here because I think Wales is in a unique position. You can make use of the scale of the UK and the expertise and the knowledge, but you're small enough to make progress. And I do see that in the Netherlands as well. So of course I'm involved in the national strategy, but the most exciting projects are at this moment in cities because of their scale. And I think that makes Wales unique. So you should profit from this unique position. Regarding your question, I'm working in AI now for I think 10 years. I started with educating the top management of the Dutch government. So it was more about explaining board members in what is AI, how can you make use of it. Then we started a lot of pilot projects, and now we are in the phase of implementing AI projects at a bigger scale. Most projects start with AI assistance. I also saw it here. Everybody starts. That's the most easier part. Of course, translations. So I see more or less the same use cases across governments worldwide. But I see also more and more struggles. So it's easy to start a pilot project. But when it comes to implementation at a bigger scale, I'm worried about security issues. Every time we want to implement it, you need to have a stamp from different officers, like a privacy officer, but also the security department. The first problem is that, for example, the privacy officers, they are struggling with, there are so many formats and guidelines across Europe at this moment, or the ethical aspects, which one do you have to follow, and when is it good enough at this moment? So they are a bit afraid of providing their stamp. So, and there are so many different examples within Europe at this moment, it's too much. So we need more standardization, not only technical standardization, but also in the protocols, the governance models, the regulation frameworks. But also the security department, when I go to them, for example, one of the biggest governmental organizations in the Netherlands, everybody is Microsoft, they are educated in Microsoft skills. And also for, there are a lot of security attacks. They need Microsoft to solve these attacks. So the people working in the security departments are Microsoft skilled, but they also need to collaborate with Microsoft to solve the biggest issues. So it's hard to make, to implement sovereign new solutions because the security department is not skilled. And I'm also worried about education more in general. For example, Google announced a few weeks ago they will provide free education for every student above 18 years in AI skills. And they all doing more or less the same. NVIDIA has an education program, all the big tech suppliers. And that means if we are not aware, everybody wants sovereignty. But it starts with education, and if we promote all the educations the big tech is providing, then we will end up with the same people working in, in the governments, in corporates. It's not possible to build sovereignty that way. So we must be, it starts with education, I think. And then, of course, we will get more knowledge in the workplace, and then we can talk about human aspects and human-centered AI, sovereignty. But at this moment, we become more and more dependent, I think. So I'm not positive regarding that topic, and that means that a tech-centric view of what is needed. It comes from Silicon Valley, it comes from China, and maybe that's not the human-centric approach we would like to have.
Thanks for that. One of the things that we wanted to do next is really drill down into some of the specifics and some of the specific examples that people are bringing around how the challenges and opportunities of people at work and working with AI are in place. And Ruth, playing hot mic, you've got the mic. I know you've got some examples from HP where you've worked with both public and private sector clients. Can you say a little bit more in detail about that?
Yeah, for sure. So I'll maybe talk on some of maybe the public side, and I'll talk actually then as well as how internally at Hewlett-Packard we're using AI as well. So an example, one of the key things, as I mentioned, is we need to understand how people need, what they need to do as part of their roles. And in working with the NHS on their 10-year plan, the digital transformation focus, a big part of that at GPs is what they need to do to help be able to see more patients, to be able to be preventative in the diagnostics of the patients, and ultimately then communicate the information in a way that's seamless. And so I'm sure there are people here who've been to a doctor's appointment, then you've been to a hospital appointment, then maybe you've been to a separate specialist, and perhaps the information has not flowed between all those different elements in a way that it should do. And so it sounds very simple, but however, all these areas are really key to really make sure we have a seamless experience, the data that's there is accurate, and then any tools in the AI diagnostics are effective because you need to have the right information to make the right decisions and recommendations and management. And so in talking with GPs, we've been working through what is the right process? How can we help you? And that's where we actually are working now on of helping infrastructures, working to advise on, the different use cases and provide solutions through the different large language models that are available, as well as different communication tools. And so I'm not sure, some of you may have been to a doctor's office where you actually see the doctor using ambient voice. And so they're actually transcribing live there into the system, recording your notes. And then, depending on the doctor, some of them will actually then go through them there with you live, or others will provide them offline. That's moving the process, making more effective communications versus someone may be elderly and not remember the information. So to be able to have that information provided and documented is really clear breakthroughs. There's lots of different things that are being used as we work through some of the transformation opportunities. The other side of things is data scientists and really looking at performance compute. And the thing I want to touch on is security is a huge priority. It doesn't get discussed as much as it should do. It's an afterthought, and generally security is talked about after there's been an impact. Security is one of our highest priorities. We work with, whether in the public sector or enterprise organization, and that's data scientists are key, because their large language models of millions and millions of rows of data are critical, of private data, to do whatever the research are doing or processing. It could be medical diagnostics, it could be doing research in a whole new technology. What they should be uploading, they don't want to be loading that up to the cloud. If they load that to the cloud, it's going to take time, it's going to take cost, and more importantly, there's a risk to security, that you have confidential data, millions and millions of sources, data points that go into the cloud. What's really important is edge compute, and the focus and investment on performance compute, high performance compute at the edge. So you have the access, you're protecting your data, and you're then working your large language models locally to process that data to deliver the outcome that you need. And then you can also then clean the data in the right way. So we have a number of data scientists working internally, whether it be on technology advancements, R&D research, that work in different tools and models to make sure that they're getting the data they need, the speed they need, and most importantly, from a security perspective, it's also protected.
That's going to bring me back to Walter, I think, in terms of some of these myths that you were interested in busting around AI and the future of work. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the one thing that I do think is quite interesting, and one topic that I'm very much concerned with, is on the one hand how government try and sort of like design their labor market policies based on topics on the future of work and labor market resilience and so on. And I work with governments across several regions of the world, and what I see is that there's almost like three typologies of policymakers, or let's say maybe like national approaches towards labor market policies in the context of artificial intelligence. One typology, which is, let's say it's almost like one extreme, are governments and countries that kind of put everything on artificial intelligence, and they're like, we're going to try and automate everything. We want to cut costs of government, and so we have like KPIs that maybe by 2030 we want to reduce the total headcount of civil servants by, and I'm not exaggerating, 30 to 40%. And we're looking there at countries predominantly in the Middle East. I think the US tried to experiment a bit with that with Doge, but it kind of, from all the evidence that we have so far, it doesn't really seem to have gone particularly well, or at least as promised, because it was kind of done very quickly. But usually, if you look at, say, countries in the Middle East, they are attempting to do that because historically they've had a very large government, and they also have working population and professional population that consists a lot of expats. And so they say, even if we automate people away, whether that's going to work or not, we're not too worried about them because they're not our citizens. The other extreme is some other countries that I've worked with, particularly in Europe, that are kind of, oh, we don't really think too much about artificial intelligence. Everyone is kind of talking about it, but so it's kind of a bit like a tick box exercise where they kind of copy what American and British think tanks have to say about it. They say the words, and they do invest a little bit, and they try some policies. And there the danger is not so much that there's a direct automation or direct threat to jobs as a result of AI per se, but rather competing economies that might disrupt their industries. One example being Germany, that has had the automotive industry that has sort of sustained I think something like 25% of all jobs in Germany are indirectly related to the automotive industry and now face competition from China. Chinese software firms, I should say. And then there's probably also a middle layer that are, I'm creating stereotypes here, right? So it's a spectrum. But there's also like a middle layer where I think there is really a more thoughtful approach to labor market policies surrounding AI and everything that it boils down to. The main criteria that differentiates the resilience of people across various kind of industries, and I think that's kind of what Marloes alluded to, is of course the literacy and the education and how we invest in people. There's not a single straightforward answer. 3 years ago, I might have given a very different overview of an AI literacy program compared to where we are today, but at least that's a start, and we can build a foundation that allows us to use the technology for purposes that benefit us personally and society as a whole.
I'm going to pass now to Chris, because partly what I've found so interesting about our conversations in the lead up to this panel is really your commitment, your company's commitment to thinking about education and skills as one of the ways we get to a better future of work. Can you say a bit more about what you think the education of the future of work will look like?
Yes. I think this is the crux of the issue for me. I think we have to go back to basics. We have to accept that the last couple hundred years hasn't really set us up for a future which is changing very dramatically. The education policies, let's say in the last 100 years, are getting people ready for a world which is dramatically shifting, before our eyes. So I would go back to primary school, early years. I think we've got to get to a point where we are working with young people, really getting their human skills up to a point where before we even start to think about knowledge and overlaying data literacy or AI skills, we get young people thinking about their core human capabilities. So the ability to socially interact, to become emotionally intelligent, to think about thinking, to be able to problem solve for themselves. We're moving very much away from a task-oriented state system which wants to get you at 3 to somewhere that looks like that at 18, and then into university at 21, and then another pathway. I think that linear progression is, I think it has to adapt. I think it has to change. If anything, it needs to look more like a spiral. Nobody knows what's going to happen tomorrow, let alone 5 years. And I do feel for young people coming out of school at this point, coming into a jobs market which is looking very different, with a handful of GCSEs, which aren't really fit for purpose for the sort of jobs of tomorrow. We really have to address the education issue, I think, from an early careers perspective or from an early years perspective, and really think about what those first sort of 5 or 10 years looks like. I mean, shoving information in, doing rote times tables, learning about 1066 and the Battle of Hastings, some of that is good, and I'm not suggesting all knowledge should be not on the table, but we have to look about how young people in particular understand what knowledge is, how to use it, how to manipulate it, how to know what good looks like, what bad looks like. And really by the time they get to secondary school, and when we start to look at shaping the sort of knowledge overlay, they're in a much more dynamic position to, assess the capabilities of what that content looks like. So I think Wales is really well set up to do this, in fact. It's had a number of frameworks, the Future of Wellbeing Act, and a number of others, which actually puts Wales in a decent position, in terms of legislation, to start to do the things which I think it needs to do for its young people. So we could talk all night about that, but my first effort would be in primary school. Why not start to change things immediately and start to focus on those human skills which are going to be so key?
Marloes, I want to bring you into the conversation.
Yes, I want to. I fully agree with you. We start with education, primary schools, but I would also like to have more attention for the daily practice in organizations. For example, we trained a lot of people within the police departments on deepfakes, misinformation. And then when you start a project within the police departments, then the process also in court is that you can only upload a screenshot of something they found on a website or whatever. So in the process, you can work. The only option is to deliver Word documents with screenshots of. And then it's impossible to do the research on disinformation, misinformation, whatever. So in most organizations, the future of work, at this moment we can train skills, AI skills, but the work process is quite often not prepared for AI. And that's also what I see in other organizations. For example, we do have skilled, very well skilled AI officers, but the process is organized for the old system. Also, for example, the finance system. So we also need more discussion about, do we want to build something new? Or do we want to use elements of the old situation? Or do we want both? And I see most organizations struggling with that. So if you talk about the future of work, we must be realistic that we are not in the future and how to make this transition to the future. And another last example, yesterday I was in an Uber, and the Uber driver asked me, why are you visiting Wales? So, well, I mentioned this conference. Oh, you're working in AI. I'm 35 years old. What should I do? My friends are talking about AI, but what should I do as an Uber driver to prepare myself? And I didn't have the answer, actually. So I'm talking all day about AI, but it's really hard to make it concrete. A simple question from an Uber driver, how to prepare? I don't know. I don't have a clue. And I think most organizations, for the people in these kinds of jobs, what should you answer? Of course, you can talk about self-driving cars or whatever, but it's not an answer to his very practical question today, how to get prepared. And I think it should start there, to prepare people in a very practical way. And if I don't know it, and I hope you do know, but let's make it so concrete and not only, we shouldn't only talk about the future, but about today and how to make the transition.
I like that. And I'm going to use this to remind all of you that we're going to have questions from you in just a moment. So be thinking about what you want to bring into this panel. I will see your future and present and take you to the past, because I admitted in the green room that I've been working on a project about automation. I've been studying how one small slice of the commercial construction industry has automated construction planning, and that project has been 15 years of research. We can't wait 15 years for some of the definitive answers for what we're facing today. But I will say 15, 17 years ago when I started this project on building construction and automation, everybody said, oh, the industry's over. Oh, the industry is going to consolidate. Oh, jobs are going to be slashed. You're going to have 30, 40% job slash. Oh, companies are going to look very different, where construction companies on large scale projects are all going to look like Toyota, right? They're going to centralize, they're going to get bigger, they're going to internationalize. And, I can say definitively that kind of 18 to 24-month horizon that was predicted by the big software vendors 17 years ago still hasn't come to pass. And I see the same thing in AI. We've got a lot of talk right now in terms of how big societal scale change will happen immediately. I'll say one more anecdote, and then I want to bring my panel back in before your questions. On the eve of the Bletchley AI Summit, almost 2 years ago, there was a young AI researcher who was helping the UK government do the prep work for the summit and later the what we now call the AI Security Institute. And he very confidently came up to me at a cocktail party before the summit and he said, "Oh, so what do you do?" And I said, "Well, I study the future of work." And he was like, "That's too bad." I was, "Sorry, what?" And he said, "Well, when artificial general intelligence comes, there'll be no more jobs." And I thought, at the moment, okay, this is a young person who's never cared for young people, and he's never cared for old people, right? I don't think we're going to get artificial general intelligence taking care of our young and our elderly anytime soon. But then I said, okay, so when do you think this moment will come that all the jobs will disappear? And he very confidently said, 18 months. So evidently all of our jobs are over now, according to some of the brightest AI scholars. So I think we have to take some of these predictions with a grain of salt. Now, that said, before your questions, my panel, quick, 60 seconds. What's the one thing you want this audience to think about taking forward? And Ruth, again, you've got the first mic. What do you think we need to do for the future of work going forward?
So from a future of work, what needs to happen is the integration. It's not an IT decision only. It's a HR people organization working with the IT decision makers, because it's all about culture. Whatever organization you're in, whether you're a big company, a small company, to actually be successful, it's got to be a consolidated plan to how you move from start to finish, what the end goals are, and bringing along the organization. So you've got people get the training, the education, the integration, and a big part of it is the HR component to be tightly integrated with the IT decision makers as a priority.
That's great. So integration.
I fully
Marloes.
agree. At this moment, the technology perspective is too big. So it should be a more multidisciplinary approach. And I think every organization and every department should think about a strategy from now to 2030, for example. And you will start with hybrid solutions, but you need to work on a focus point for the next 5 years. Let's start with that, because it's too hard to think about 10 years ahead. But you need a strategy how to move forward within the coming 5 years, and what you can do now and what you can do in to get at your focus point within 5 years, and how to build sovereign solutions instead of being dependent of the big tech.
Chris, Walter?
Yeah, I think we need to be brave. I think we need to make decisions and take risk. I think we don't do enough of that. I think there is money around. It needs to be spent on thinking about what the future could look like, would look like. Nobody has a crystal ball, so we don't really know that. But we do know that AI is displacing jobs, that those task-based jobs are going to go. And we need to, back human beings. We need to get back in touch with what it means to be a human in 2025, 2030, 2045, and understand what that shape, what that arc looks like. And I really think there's an opportunity to get back in touch with the things that we've lost over the last century. We've sort of exported them to tools and technology, and I think it's a sort of an opportunity to take some of that back.
Thank you. If I might just shift a bit from the supply side to the demand side perspective, my main recommendation is to audit yourself how you interact with artificial intelligence, and who or what we consider experts is, in my opinion, one of the big questions of the next 5 to 10 years. So very quickly, we're about to release a study next week, where we found that of 1,500 people in the UK that we surveyed, 60% had already taken advice from AI on matters related to health, related to relationship advice, related to financial advice and political information. A third had already substituted at least once advice from a doctor, a trusted friend, a therapist, or a financial advisor with AI-generated advice at least once. in the context of the future of work, that is, you kind of can back up other human beings by, on the one hand, relying to advice that is more high quality and that rests on interpersonal relationships and supporting someone else and at the same time receiving a much higher quality of service from people that you work with.
My team last week released a report that showed that half of UK published novelists believe that AI will replace their jobs entirely within the next 15 years. And, you know, what the lead author on that report said, will human written novels be a luxury? And, you know, will human given advice that's tailored for you, like we expect from our doctors, from our solicitors, will that be a luxury for only a few in the future? We've got time for a few questions. I'm going to ask, we've got a mic that's going to go around, and I'm going to ask for a quick consolidation. We'll take a quick consolidation of questions and then bring it back to the panel. So keep your questions brief. Are there any questions? There's one here.
Hi, thank you for that. We often talk about 2030 and in 15 years and 20 years. On the topic of work, what are your expectations for 2026?
That's a great question. What are we looking forward in the next coming year, in 2026? Another question? Oh, we've got one in the back. Does the mic even reach?
Hi, it was not really a question, but more an answer to in terms of what do you think we should do now? Totally agree with everybody on the panel about people-powered intelligence, but it feels to me that there's a big difference between the way that we approach business and enterprise and the way that we approach human beings. And ultimately, human beings are powering business and enterprise. So start with those human beings first. And what to do? Start using Gemini, ChatGPT, Grok, and learn to communicate and interface with AIs.
Thank you. Yeah, great. Other question? Okay, panel. 2026. I'll take moderator's prerogative and come last. 2026, who wants to start?
From a purely intellectual and academic interest point of view, I am very curious about the first consumer-friendly embodied AI. So basically hardware, right? First we created the brain, now we built the body. There have been some videos I would recommend people to have a look at from 1X and another one called Figure AI. And I think they are humanoid robots that cost at the moment about $20,000, but they're not particularly good yet. By 2026, they'll be on the market and they're meant to be better from what we can see in the demo videos. What does this mean for the future of work? So that will be another twist in the story in the sense that we said first cab drivers might be impacted, then it became white collar workers, then it became entry-level jobs. Now what happens actually to manual workers, right?
2026, I think the bubble will burst to a certain extent. I think some of the shine will come off the AI, the AI bubble. I think it probably needs to. There needs to be a reality check. 2026 will be the year that the UK gets its act together. I hope that there is good policy, political cooperation, collaboration. I really hope that's the case. If we don't get together as a nation, then we really are toast, because Silicon Valley is incredibly powerful, and we need an antidote to that. So those would be, and my GP to listen to me, because I don't think all professional advice is great.
Okay, certainly the priority one I would say is what I've already said, is the people integration with the AI decision making and choice points. The other element I'd certainly put in there, hybrid infrastructure and hybrid work experiences are absolutely the way that almost most people are working today. Making sure that right structure is there for success, how people work together, whether you're working at home, whether you're working in the office, whether you're on the train, on the airport. You have that appropriate collaboration experience so everyone feels they have a voice and a seat at the table, and providing that. And ultimately helping to drive to more preventative actions and solutions versus reactive. So providing the people with tools to make sure that there is no downtime and people are delivering the outcomes that are needed.
It's a hard question, 2026. My scope goes until 2025. No, joking. Of course, we will, the AI bubble, let's see what happens after the bubble. But we will have more robots on the workplace. At this moment, I think there's too much discussion about Gen AI. We will see some breakthroughs within sectors like healthcare, energy, and so on. So I expect more major innovations, more sector-specific applications, and I expect Gen AI, some of them will become less smart because they are scraping the internet, social media at this moment, and more data will be will stay within sectors. And we need more a holistic perspective. Not AI is not one thing. It's about cloud. It's about IoT. It's about hardware. It's about a lot of stuff. And it will also have impact on the workforce. And we must be realistic. A lot of people will lose their job. So we should be clear about that. And what is your transition plan for all those people who lose their jobs? Nobody wants to talk about that, but we must be prepared for that.
My 10-second hot take is that this will be the year of AI agents, and we will see two things. We'll see terrible teaming that leads to a company lawsuit. We will see an AI agent that goes rogue and causes problems, and we will see AI agents that become indispensable in work. And so we're going to see, I think we're going to see both the top of what's possible and the real challenge is the hard work that we have to do. The good thing is we're here in Wales where there is leadership that is taking on that trusted, safe, responsible AI approach that doesn't leave people behind. And I want you to join me in thanking our brilliant panel and thank you for being here today. Thank you.
What a fascinating discussion. Thank you so much to all of you on the panel and to Gina for her fantastic work as chair as well. Give them a massive round of applause one more time, please.